This presentation is titled Dietitian's Guide to Practical Protein and Nutrition. My name is Kareem Sadak. I'm a pediatric oncologist here at the U at Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Cancer Center, and the director of our Childhood Cancer Survivor Program. It's so great to have you guys here. I hope the day has gone well. You've heard some interesting talks, maybe met somebody new, at least got breakfast, and we'll have lunch after this, by the way, so that's around the corner. But we're so happy to have you. And before I introduce our speaker, I do want to mention, remember, this is going to be a topic that is a general overview of some really great tips that are helpful for all of our nutrition across all aspects of our diet, what we put in our bodies, how we fuel our bodies. So it may not specifically apply to you, but in many ways, in general, there may be things that apply to each and every one of us. And for folks online and for folks in the room, there will be a time for question and answers at the end. So online, just throw your questions in the chat. In the room here, when we're all done, I'll walk around with the microphone to make sure everybody can hear your question and benefit from the answer. So thanks for being here. It's going to be a great session. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our outstanding speaker, Kelsey Kincaid. She's a registered dietitian with a background in clinical nutrition and culinary experience. She earned her undergraduate degree at Concordia College, completed her dietetic internship and Master's of Science at McNeese State in Louisiana, spent 5 years in a professional kitchen. That real life experience is so valuable for all of us, and has moved into our pediatric acute care and joined our team at Masonic Children's Hospital, caring for children with cancer and other serious diseases there. So we're so happy to have you. Can't wait to hear about this great topic. And thanks for being here.
Hi. Oh, I haven't even talked yet. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Kelsey. I'm a dietitian. So my goal for today is to really give you a practical guide to protein and nutrition, hence the title. I think that in the world we live in, there is a lot of social media influence. You see a million different things of what you should eat, shouldn't eat on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So today I'm hoping to break some of that down and go over some of the evidence-based research we have on things that prevent reoccurrence and are just overall general health and well-being. So I have no disclosures today. And like I said, we'll talk about the general health, well-being, how to reduce risk of chronic diseases in general, and hopefully spread some joy. So, number one, I know you're shocked, eat a diet rich in whole grains. This is what a whole grain looks like. I know it can be kind of mysterious, but this just means that it includes the endosperm, germ, and bran. By eating whole grains, you increase fiber in your diet. So anytime we're having all of these components, you're getting all the nourishment from the whole grain is helpful. However, I know what you're picturing right now when I say whole grains is some dry brown rice. Am I right? You can be honest. Maybe some whole grain noodles that you ate at school or tried to make at home and overboiled and they got kind of dry and sticky. Or maybe you're thinking of a little piece of whole grain bread that's kind of sad. It doesn't have to be like that. There's some practical, fun whole grains. So that would include things like oatmeal. The oat itself is a whole grain. Some bran muffins. I know the audience is kind of a mixed bag on bran muffins. I love bran muffins. So this is a bran blueberry muffin recipe that has some really nice whole grain in it. Popcorn is a whole grain, right? The kernel itself is a grain and you're just popping it open. So that's a whole grain. Good way to increase fiber in your diet. Even if we process that corn a little bit into something like a tortilla chip, selecting a whole grain tortilla chips is a way to increase your fiber intake. If you want to get fancy with it, there's some really nice cold grain bowl salads or recipes like wild rice is a whole grain, or quinoa, or really any of those kind of grain type salads. The second one, eat more fruits and vegetables. Again, I know you're shocked. The current recommendation from the American Heart Association is to aim for 5 servings a day, which would provide hopefully 25 grams of fiber, with a goal of 2.5 cups of vegetables, 2 cups of fruit. And we'll get into the why a little bit here too. Phytochemicals. You've probably heard of antioxidants, which are a phytochemical, but this is why you've been told to eat vegetables, eat your broccoli for your whole life, probably. This is why. They really pack a punch. So you can see here, I have a picture of a normal cell, and then there's free radicals attacking the cell. Free radicals in our body can happen for a variety of reasons. Things like sunlight or pollution, in stress, anything like that can create more free radicals in our body. And when they have a lot of them, it's called oxidative stress. So an antioxidant donates an electron to help neutralize those free radicals, and those you can get through vegetables and fruit. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, anytime you can eat a variety, anytime you can eat the rainbow, anytime you can eat a mix of colors, textures, tastes, it's beneficial. So you can see here, like green vegetables have carotenoids and lutein that can be helpful for age-related macular degeneration, but can also be helpful in slowing the growth of certain types of cancer cells. Research has shown like breast, skin, lung, stomach cancers. So again, these are things that could potentially help. Broccoli, coniferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, which are my personal favorite, cabbage, cauliflower, those all act as, things with potassium and beta carotene, act as antioxidants, can help repair your DNA just by eating vegetables more, block the activity of hormones that impact the development of some cancer. So they really pack a punch. Red berries have carotenoids and anthocyanins in them, act as antioxidants, slow the reproduction of cancer cells, inhibit the development of some cancers. So really eating as much. Another big one is tomatoes and lycopene for prostate cancer. Anytime you can eat more fruits and vegetables, you're getting a more wide variety of antioxidants and benefits, so it really does matter. So here it comes. What does a serving look like? So I said the goal is 5 servings a day. So that could be about 1 medium fruit. It can be fresh, frozen, canned varieties of fruits or vegetables. And you might be like, did she just say canned? Yes, I said canned. I said frozen. We don't have to be haters. We live somewhere where it gets a little chilly outside, and fresh fruits and vegetables don't grow all year long here, right? So it is okay to select something that's affordable, that's available, that's accessible. It really doesn't matter the type. Dried fruit juices, I will say the caveat is, it's not recommended that you drink all of your, that you blend all your fruits and vegetables up and drink them in a juice form. You really miss out on things like fiber, which I'm going to talk a lot about, which is one of my favorite topics. But fiber is so important for your gut health, for your heart health. It can help bind to some of those LDLs or bad cholesterol. It can help your blood sugar by keeping you feel full longer. So anytime we can keep fiber in its whole form is helpful. A cup of leafy greens are very voluminous. Same half cup for fresh, frozen, canned vegetables, and then again with juice. So what does that look like? That sounds like so many fruits and vegetables, like you're just going to be chomping on carrot sticks all day. That doesn't have to be what that looks like. If 5 seems like this big number that you're never going to get to. Maybe start at 2.5 servings of mostly veggies. That can be a good start. So for breakfast, maybe you're having some breakfast potatoes. If there's skin on those potatoes, you're getting great fiber, some different minerals, maybe some peppers, or onions in there. Maybe there's spinach in your eggs, fruit in your yogurt or in your oatmeal in the mornings. You can definitely do carrot sticks. They can be a quick snack, but with guacamole or peanut butter or ranch. And then lunch or dinner, maybe it's just pulling out a little bit of frozen broccoli and stirring it into a pasta you're making. It does not have to be fancy. Maybe you didn't eat a lot of vegetables earlier in the day and now you're really trying to make up for it at dinner. So maybe you're doing like a cabbage stir fry or a salad or something like that to kind of make up for lost time at lunch. Those could all be options for veggies. Canned beans are great. The third recommendation is to limit your intake of red or processed meat. So red meat is beef, pork, lamb, venison. Those are all red meat sources. The recommendation is less than 18 ounces per week, or, that'd be 3 ounces, 6 days a week, but I think it's easier to think of in like a pound of hamburger is 16 ounces. So somewhere in that market. And then processed meat, which is like ham, bacon, salami, sausage, things that are smoked or cured is what counts as a processed meat. This has been linked with higher incidences of colorectal cancer. So the general recommendation is to eat less. But what can you eat instead, right? We're all about being practical today. So things to eat instead more often would be lean animal proteins like skinless chicken or turkey, tuna, sardines, salmon, eggs. Low-fat dairy can be a great option. One of the things I see a lot in the patients I serve is people who have to be on antibiotics a lot, right? So sometimes that can knock down the good bacteria in your gut. Eating fermented foods that are naturally fermented, like yogurt or cottage cheese, can be helpful in replenishing some of that. Although, we can't just eat cheese all the time, as fun as that would be. It's always in moderation. And then plant-based proteins. So plant-based protein would be beans, legumes, tree nuts, seeds. It's kind of what we think of in plant-based proteins. This creates a lot of different options. I feel like there's protein in everything now. I've seen protein gummy bears and protein water, and I don't even know what I've seen it in lately. Everywhere, protein powders. So these are ways that you can get naturally occurring protein. It's hopefully a lot cheaper. A can of beans, I promise, is going to be less expensive than protein gummy bears. But these can be options. Soy sometimes gets a bad rap, but studies show that 1 to 2 servings per day can provide benefit and fiber, especially if you're thinking about those whole servings of soy, whole foods that contain soy. So like edamame is soybeans, tofu is soybeans, soy nuts, things like that. Soy milk would count as soy servings. So what does this look like? Here comes my practical pictures. So this is chana masala, which is like my favorite food. But it's curried chickpeas, right? So you're getting a protein source. It has some tomatoes in it. If you're really thinking about it fancy, is any of like the iron or minerals that are in the garbanzo beans is going to help absorb with that vitamin C from the tomatoes. So that can be a great meal as a way to get some protein in and some veggies in. It's garbanzo beans.
No, the name of the dish.
Chana masala.
Chana masala?
Yeah. It's like Indian inspired. Yeah. Or just curry. You can curry anything. Or it could be a quick go-to snack, like cashews or almonds. Pumpkin seeds are high in magnesium, it looks like in there. There's some craisins or raisins. This is a sweet potato chili. So instead of the meat in it, it has sweet potatoes and beans. Maybe eating more plant-based protein or eating more vegetables for you is like meatless Mondays. Maybe you make a goal once a week to serve a meatless option. Maybe it's sweet potato chili. Maybe I've inspired you today, but that can be a way to be intentional about eating more fruits, vegetables, plant-based proteins. This is a smoothie. I got a little excited with all the stock photos, as you can see. But this is a smoothie, just to remind me to say tofu could also be mixed into a smoothie as an extra protein source, add some creaminess to it. Just a different option, probably less expensive than a powder. Number 4 is limit your intake of fast foods and other processed foods that are high in fat, starches, and sugars. Fast foods are not something that we should be eating every day, but life definitely gets busy, right? Maybe you're in appointments all day, maybe you're going from event to event, and sometimes we do just need fast, quick options. So what are some options that we could do that are fast, but not fast food? I've seen these snack boxes a lot. You could easily, clear up some of the fruits and vegetables that you haven't eaten at home and maybe take them with you. But I've also seen these at grocery stores or supermarkets that have, you're gonna get the fiber from the grapes and the apples, protein from the eggs and the cheese. Maybe that's a whole grain something, I don't know, cracker. So that could be a great option. So even if you don't have those ingredients on hand, but picking it up and selecting something from the supermarket that has those whole foods is going to be a better choice than maybe a drive-through. A salad bag can be a great fast option. Sometimes I shake it in the bag. You don't even need a bowl. It can be super fast. So that could be a different option. Maybe you grab a protein source like tuna or shrimp or, something like that to put on it. Maybe you have a leftover protein from earlier in the week. This one's kind of weird. Sorry, let me get a drink. It's a bread machine. Hear me out. So one of the things that I started doing when I resurrected the bread machine from my parents' basement is pizza dough. You can, there's a whole aisle of fast food pizzas, but a lot of bread machines have a dough setting. So you get home from work on a Friday, throw your ingredients in there, 90 minutes later, you have pizza dough. You can put whatever you want on it, clear out your fridge, get creative with it, but you're also not eating some of the preservatives that they put in the pizzas to keep them shelf stable. Maybe it's less sodium, less phosphorus. You can really control the ingredients that go in it. So it's a way to make something faster, but also still being able to tailor it to what you need. Maybe you're gonna have a really stressful week at work, and instead of being starving when you're done at 7 o'clock, you have already thought ahead, and this is the week that you buy some factor meals or do a meal service or something like that. To provide more balanced food options, it's okay to give yourself grace always. Number 5 is limiting your intake of sugary drinks. So we all know where to find sugary drinks, but these are some options. Really, what we should be drinking most of the time is water, but it could be fun water. It could be water with little fruit in it to make it infused with different flavors. I've seen like cucumber mint water, or sometimes I'll see, like this one looks like it has some oranges in it. There's an unsweetened tea, coffee, those types of things. Number 6 is limiting alcohol to reduce cancer risk in general. So I think this is something that's become very trendy lately. I see a lot of, sorry, my throat's getting dry. I'm just going to take a drink. I see a lot of menus having like non-alcoholic options. So that's a little mocktail recipe, maybe some hop water, which is still the hops that you would use to make beer, but just infused in water instead, and sparkling waters. There's so many sparkling waters on the market now, so these are just some options.
So is any alcohol okay, or would you be better off not drinking alcohol?
Luckily, somebody asked this in the session before you. She asked how much alcohol is some okay or not. See, I work in pediatrics. So usually I say, oh no. And I was like, oh, okay. So the recommendation is 1 to 2 servings per day.
Oh, per day?
But that's like a serving is 1 ounce of like a hard alcohol, or I think it's 3 ounces of wine, 4. See, Dr. Sadek had to help me before too. He's like giving me numbers back there. Probably not. Maybe that's okay. It's a general recommendation for a week. So more often choose these things. Yeah, somebody asked me in the last class, like half a bottle of wine. I was like, no. No. Be a healthy weight is always a recommendation. Talking about total body fat, visceral fat can always increase your risk. So just kind of, these are overall guidelines, so I think it's important to mention. The next one is to be physically active. So that looks different for everybody. The most important thing for me is to move your body in a way that's joyful. I don't know if I'm like yelling this time or why. Sorry. Maybe that's just walking more in your daily routine, or adding a movement break. If you have a more sedentary job, maybe you're walking across to print something. Involving others. I love to go for walks with friends. Maybe you're popping on an audiobook. Maybe you're calling a loved one while you're on your walk, so you're kind of doing 2 things at once. Using your environment. Maybe that means parking further back in a parking lot, or taking the stairs at work, increasing your activity in those ways. But it can also be house cleaning, yard work, chores, those things. That was amazing. I saw somebody go, yes. That was amazing. But those things, that's a lot of work too. Yard work, that can be a lot of work. I don't know if anybody's had to weed anything lately. Not easy. I grew up rural, so I don't know if anybody's had to rock pick lately. Not easy, not easy. So those are all things that we move our body. I don't know if rock picking sparks joy, but one of the things that sparks joy for me is this pound workout, this picture of a rock out workout. I should have put that in my disclosures, maybe, that I'm a Pound Pro certified, but it's a cardio drumming class with yoga and Pilates inspired moves. That's kind of a dance cardio class. It's for anybody. It's great because we use these weighted ripsticks, and you can pound up here or you can squat really low, and you'll do 200 squats and not remember what you did for 45 minutes. So it's called Pound, like P-O-U-N-D. There's classes all over the Twin Cities. Some of them are free, so if anybody wants to know more about them, let me know. We do a free class at like Minnehaha Falls in the summer on Wednesday nights, but it's just fun. I've met a lot of really great friends through it. So sometimes these alternative fitness communities, everybody just wants to share this like super fun thing that they do with you, can be a great place for community too. And if you love it and have fun doing it, you'll do it again. Number 9 is don't take supplements for cancer prevention. You'll kind of see a theme here. It doesn't provide the same nutrients as eating the whole food. It's better to eat the fruits, the vegetables, the fiber. It can interfere with prescribed medications, or high doses can be harmful. So save your money.
I have a question on that. So if you're like myself, I do take some supplements, but I've been cancer-free now for a long time. So are you, and I know that they always tell you it's better to get it in food, but there's a few supplements that I take because I think that I should, like a multivitamin and some fish oil and that sort of thing. So do you, and I didn't take anything when I was going through treatment because the doctor told me nothing. But so if you're not going through treatment, what is your concern about supplements?
Can you summarize the question for everyone so they can hear it too? And then we'll
Yeah.
get to all the questions at the end. Almost there.
So her question was kind of what supplements can you take? If you're not going through treatment, those types of things. So I can just give general recommendations for those things. You should always talk to your primary care provider about these types of things. In general, I look for a multivitamin that doesn't go over 100% of the different ingredients. Your body has a way of excreting those, typically in your urine. So really you're just making your pee expensive. If you're paying for really expensive vitamins that you're just going to pee out because they're giving you more than 100% of what you need, that's what happens. So that can be a great way. They aren't regulated by the FDA, so you can look at like Consumer Lab, Quack Watch, different things to look at to make sure that you're actually getting what you think you're getting or what's being marketed. So
you're not totally against it, you're just telling them to do your research.
of course, yeah. And sometimes they're prescribed. I prescribe that. There's some times where somebody does need extra vitamin D or things like that. So I guess be mindful and be aware of big expensive supplements that make inappropriate promises for sure. Yeah. Number 10, be kind to yourself always. You can see I was having fun with the stock photos. I just thought this girl was so cute. But this is a lot of information, and a lot of information comes at you all day long, and we're just doing our best, right? These are little practical things that we can do to help prevent risk of reoccurrence, to increase more fiber, to do these things. So hopefully I just gave you a few ideas, tips, tricks, inspired you in the kitchen today. What questions? Dr. Sadek's ready with the mic, so he might bring it up here if you have a question.
Okay, we've got one right here.
Just raise your hand and he'll come around.
So I'm living with metastatic colorectal cancer.
Sure.
And probably before, and also chemotherapy and radiation has killed healthy gut bacteria, and made me very sensitive to lactase. So what kind of dairy-free recommendations do you have, or what thoughts do you have for someone who's suddenly lactose intolerant, and all of the diarrhea that goes along with chemotherapy? Those are two separate questions, I suppose.
Those are great questions. So the first question, I think being dairy-free is also something that's trending more. And for that, there have more products on the market. There is lactate pills that you could try to see if those help with digestion, that replace some of that lactase when you are eating dairy, or if you do eat dairy. You could select things that are less. So cream is going to be your highest amount of lactase, whereas Parmesan cheese is going to have a really low amount of lactase. So you could kind of play with that a little bit. But then when it comes to dairy alternatives, if they are supplemented with calcium, that can be helpful in truly replacing the dairy. But then from there, I think it's your preference. If there's not necessarily one that's better or worse. I feel some of them have stronger flavors, like almond milk. I feel like oat milk has a less strong flavor. I haven't found a super great melty cheese that's non-dairy. Just gonna be honest. It's harder to find something that melts sometimes, but the flavor is usually pretty good. You could also make things creamy with like pureed nuts, like cashews, cashew butters, things like that. So there's kind of some different recipes out there for that. In terms of diarrhea associated with chemotherapy.
I can take that one if you want me to start.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so common, right? And it's so disruptive. It's one I definitely tell folks, let us know as the oncology team, because two things that alerts us to. Number one, can we do then the blood work to see what nutrition or nutrients you're losing in the diarrhea, right? It may be the case there's one that specifically become low, and then we can recommend a supplement necessary to help replace that. And then number two, there's times where we have to either change things, not necessarily the whole medication, but the dose or the frequency or the schedule, that can sometimes help with some of these types of side effects. And so definitely, like you probably already have, of course, just bring it up with the team, because there's things that they can do a little differently, especially before taking any medicine for it, because that's a factor too that they'll want to hear about. Great, here's a question right up here.
Quick question. One of the things that surprised me is you said that cottage cheese was fermented. I never knew that, and I make a point of eating fermented foods because I think it's good for your gut, but I never, that's the first time I've ever heard that cottage cheese was fermented.
Yeah. They've even started marketing on it. It's one of those things that's naturally fermented, but I just saw this cottage cheese brand. It was called like Good Culture or something, right? They use those bacteria specifically to make it curdle. So, yeah. Oh, I don't know. You're like me. Yeah. Just like yogurt. So I think different brands and yogurts add different strains. Maybe they'll add more colony forming units, CFUs, but really you're going to get a benefit from any, and I don't buy $6 cottage cheese. Some people do. If that's your MO, that's great, but I go to Aldi.
Thank you for the talk.
Sure.
Chemo has given me a lot of food aversions, and so I was grateful for some of the plant-based protein options, but are there any protein powders that you would recommend, or is that something to steer clear from?
So protein powders, I think, can be a great benefit if it's something that you need. Oftentimes, people do get enough protein in general, but if you're not able to eat some of the whole food things that I mentioned, then they can be a great option. I wouldn't do it as your sole source if at all possible, but 1 or 2 servings a day I think would be just fine. Other options, just because you mentioned like the meat aversion or things, eggs, hummus, nut butters can add some variety. Some of them are a lot less flavorful than some. Marinating things differently can be helpful if your taste profiles have changed at all. So just different tips and tricks.
For the virtual audience, just repeating that question, since make sure they heard it was about protein powders and other ways for plant-based protein. We have a question back here.
You mentioned with like juicing that you lose some of that fiber, but you also mentioned smoothies. How much, if at all, does fiber break down if you're like throwing spinach or berries and stuff into a smoothie and blitzing it? Or is that still relatively intact from a total fiber intake?
I think it depends on what you're doing. So if you're using a juicer, I feel like it's a massacre for vegetables. They all go through this juicer and then they like are all gone. So that would probably eliminate all of your fiber in a juicer, because a lot of the fibrous materials is like the pulp or the skin on the apples that wouldn't be there anymore. But if you're throwing a handful of raspberries into like a Ninja and mixing that, that I think you're still going to get a little fiber because it's not there's still chunks. You know, if there's still chunks of fruit in it, you're still getting fiber.
So if there's fiber in it, but you whirl it, then the fiber's too fine, or?
Right. If you completely pulverize it, then you won't have any fiber. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Yes. So the question was, how much can you blend fiber to still have fiber exist, essentially? Why do I feel like this is how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck chuck wood? I think to use your discretion, but anytime you're eating a whole fruit, you're going to get the most fiber. So if you're doing what we would call in the kitchen like a rough chop of the fiber, you're going to get more fiber than if it's completely pulverized.
So you can really break it down. See, I never knew that either. You are just full of good information.
Thank you.
Question right here.
Yeah.
You gave a recommendation for fruits and vegetables. How much protein should you aim to have each day?
Sure. So the recommendation is a little bit different for everybody. If you're currently experiencing treatment or if when you were in treatment, it's recommended 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilo. When you are not experiencing treatment, that recommendation goes down. So kilos, if you take your body weight in pounds and divide it roughly in half, that would be how many grams of protein somebody needs in a day. So it's really not as much as mainstream media, who's selling us the protein water, would like us to think it is. But that's a general guideline for how much protein.
We have a question online about sodium intake. What are some tips or tricks for the low sodium recommendations that people might be getting?
Sure. So anytime you can make something yourself, you have more control over that sodium. It's impossible to take sodium out of ultra processed food like fast food or any of kind of those ready convenience foods. So anytime you can limit how much sodium you're putting into a recipe, cooking something from scratch, or selecting the Heart Healthy logo on pre-made like canned soups, things like that, it will have overall less sodium.
I have a question. How do you work out the nutrients if you're on multiple diets?
We are doing our
Including the
best in this
protein.
world. So if you're working with a doctor or a dietitian or somebody who could help you kind of target which one is the most important, in general, following a lot of the guidelines I said now today help with a lot of different diets, but it is very custom to each person, and I think it's important to do your best. There's no right or wrongs.
I have a question. You said about smoked meats, to avoid those.
Yes.
And I live in Duluth, and up the shore on French River, we like to get smoked fish.
I was like, this is sounding delicious.
So does that, yeah. So Russ Kendall's smoked fish.
I
yes.
would use all
Yes,
my
yes,
18
yes.
ounces on that.
Yeah. So does that negate the effects of the health of the, smoked trout or salmon or, herring?
Yeah, so it's the general recommendation just because, it's not exactly known why it has such an increased risk. There's some conversation on if it's from the smoking, if it's from the nitrates, if it's from the overall preservatives that make things shelf stable. So in general, it still pertains to those things. But like I said, I would use my 18 ounces on that because they sound delicious. Okay.
I've read that your body can only process a certain amount of protein at one time. So like, a friend who was telling me, it doesn't matter that milkshake has 30 grams of protein in it because a person can only process how much can you have in one setting for protein? Like she recommended 25 grams. She said, that's as much as your body can process.
The general recommendation I gave before that is like your body weight cut in half per 1 gram of protein, I feel like is about your max for the day. The reason that it's so trendy to add all these extra proteins is because it can increase satiety and it takes longer to digest, so people feel full longer. So I usually see it when people are trying to lose weight, but it from like a molecular component of your body, you're exactly right. It's not something that you need excess quantities of. No, so that number of like your body weight cut in half grams of protein is how much your body can process for the day, and the rest of it you excrete and get rid of. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
It was very informative. I have 2 questions actually,
Okay.
so I'm just going to ask you. One is the greens, the raw greens does not really sit well in my stomach. I usually get like a bloating from it.
Sure.
So what are my options with that? And the second question I will just ask now is the difference between whey protein powder and a pea protein powder. Do you recommend one over the other?
Sure.
Thank you.
Those are all great questions. So the first question, greens, I would experiment. Usually my recommendation is to not eat something that causes you discomfort or distress. There's other ways to get those antioxidants in. You could try cooking it or putting it in with something, or that could help break down some of it. Maybe that would be a time to put it in a smoothie so it's a little bit more digested like that, and probably not eating a lot of it at once. The second question,
The whey protein
thank
versus other
you.
protein.
Okay, so she's saying it's just not tolerated. Then I would probably not eat it. I don't want you to eat something that causes you to have any discomfort, and abdominal pain is not fun. So I just eat other things. And then whey protein versus pea protein. So whey protein is an animal source, right? It's typically from milk or cow's milk. Pea protein, like Ripple milk, Cape Farms, things like that, is a plant-based protein from peas. It usually has more fiber. It might depend on tolerance-wise. If you're somebody who's sensitive to fiber, I would be mindful of that. One of the supplements we use in the hospital quite often is called Cape Farms. Some people, their guts really like the extra fiber, and sometimes not. So that could help make the decision on if whey or pea is better for you.
Thank you for a great session. Let's give Kelsey a big round of applause.
All right, thank you.